You're listening to the KB Podcast Network.
Hey guys, what's going on? How you doing? Welcome back to the Kingdom Bringer podcast. I'm excited for today. It's kind of a bonus episode. It's not an extra episode. It's a bonus episode. So I'm going to call it a super fun, exciting, really cool idea episode. Met a couple guys from Wichita through a Facebook podcasting group. Jason Villanueva and Chris Cerna from the Salty Dogs podcast. We have decided to kind of do some collaborating a little bit. They run the saltydogs.podcast.com. They've asked me to come on and be a contributor to their Salty blog page, where they have me on sharing my blogs from kingdombringer.com. They also shared as a bonus episode on their podcast my episode with Josh and Nacy, Kingdom Through Safetime. They uploaded that on their RSS feed, which was just really super cool. Super cool of them to be able to do that. And I told them I would pay them back for that. So this episode here is going to be a Salty Dogs episode called Kingdom Vision for Marriage. Here's the deal. It had the word kingdom in it. So I kind of have to do that, right? I kind of have to have that episode be the one. You know what I mean? So this is Kingdom Vision for Marriage. This is actually from their season 3. This is episode 15 from their season 3. I believe they're on season 4 right now. So it's a little older one, but you can go check them out at saltydogs.podcast.com and find all of their stuff. Just really good production, really good quality podcast, very good conversations that take place there. And we're hoping to collaborate a little more in the future. We got some cool dreams and cool visions and some cool things coming down the pike that maybe we can share with you guys later. But these two guys are doing some cool things in the podcast world, and I wanted to share them with my audience. So today we're going to get to hear Kingdom Vision for Marriage from the Salty Dogs podcast. I want to remind you guys to check out kingdombringer.com for all of our latest blogs, latest podcasts. And don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and share this podcast right here on all platforms: Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher. Find us on YouTube. Anywhere you want. That's the way you want. Okay. Check us out at kingdombringer.com. All of that stuff's on there. Please go visit that. Sign up for the email list. We want to hear from you. That's it. Here it is. It's our collaboration time with the Salty Dogs podcast. Check out their stuff at saltydogspodcast.com. Here is Kingdom Vision for Marriage. Here we go.
Welcome back to the Salty Dogs podcast.
Yo, yo.
What's up, Chris Erna?
Nothing much. Jason Villanueva. We never do that.
Yeah, we just dropped our full names on the podcast.
So people, should we do social address?
Nah, we don't need to
all
do
that stuff. Okay.
No.
We can.
Here we are, season 3,
episode 51.
51,
the
yeah.
biggest. It's a milestone.
You guys missed the milestone episode, which was the last
We also
episode.
missed it too.
Actually, if you listened to it, you didn't miss it. We just didn't make a big deal of it.
Episode 100, though.
That'll be a bigger deal.
That'll be a big deal.
That'll take how many seasons? That'll take almost 6 seasons to hit.
I mean, if we keep trucking through in the fall, we'll build up some more. I mean,
well, I kind of consider all the other bonus stuff not really episodes. Just So, anyways,
how many podcasts make it to episode 100? That's like a milestone, right? I would imagine.
Oh, for sure.
There's not very many.
Well, there's some percentage of podcasts that don't make it past 7 episodes. Like the majority of them will stop before 7 episodes. or at 7 episodes. But then also there's a statistic right now that says about roughly 60% of it's like 800,000 or 600,000 podcasts that exist. Only 40% of them are still in production.
Oh, wow. So there's just all this content that's floating around out there.
Yeah, but you also have to take into account, like, some of them are investigative. And so if there's a murder podcast and
there's been a murder in Savannah.
Well, and they present 12 episodes worth of murder podcasts.
Right.
And it doesn't have a new episode. Well, it's kind of like a show.
Right.
Oh, hey, we made it through it.
It's like, a show that has one season and then they never make anything else. It still exists.
Pretty much.
Well, that's not going to be us.
Yeah, it's not going to be us.
We're in it for the long haul.
Apparently so. We're just going to keep doing what we do.
Keep doing it. You got any cool updates in your life?
Yeah, so Casey and I were just in Colorado.
We get it.
Yeah. Whatever.
You did something
awesome
in
and
nature.
fun. Yeah, we did. It was really fun. We went and hiked a mountain. We did a 6-mile hike up and then obviously 6 miles back down. It took us like 6 or 7 hours. I was a slowpoke.
I'm jealous.
I'm kind of a fatty 2x4. But
well, Casey climbs trees, man. So
barely even broke a sweat. But it was really good to get away with him. And just if you guys, I know you haven't heard from Casey in a while, but he's doing well. I want to give a shout out to him. And so we actually did this in the Facebook group, but just kind of in honor of Casey today, I'm going to share something that he shared with me as we were driving back from Colorado.
What's up, Corey? What's up, Tim?
He let's see here, where is it? So he shared something with me. He said, "Oh, I haven't written anything in a long time," and I was like, "Dude, yeah, you should start writing again." He goes, "Well, I did write something the other day." So here, this is actually from KC. And so we're just going to read it. This will be our devotional.
Nice.
We're doing a daily Devo. This is
our first Devo.
Our first daily Devo on the Salty Dogs podcast.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't be daily. It'd be episodely Devo.
Like once every 6 months.
Episodic Devo.
Sure.
Oh, snap. So he says this: if God isn't about look at what I've done in terms of righteousness, why then, conversely, would he be about look at what I've done in matters of guilt, shame, remorse, and sin? In both...
I wasn't trying to be funny. That was good.
In both of those instances, he instead points to Christ. He is my righteousness, and he hath done away with sin. Therefore, right and wrong conduct stems only from the heart's connection to his Son. Conduct in the sense of doing what is right or wrong becomes a secondary reaction to a primary nature. A nature totally infused with the life of Christ by the Spirit will, by default, always produce the fruits of the Spirit, which can be enjoyed by those that are the recipient of our works of goodness that have been preordained by the Lord. Connection is everything in the Spirit-led life of a child of God. Dare I say, it is the only thing. Our connection to Christ through the Spirit is natural and organic, organized yet sporadic, in the moment yet looking ahead. If we seek only to tighten our connection with Christ, who is our life, and seek only to open more and more the channels by which the Spirit may flow through us, I feel that we will find the rest that our Father spoke of. I feel that we would find the yoke that is easy and the burden is light. Lord, will you grant me stronger connection and unclogged channels? And so we were like driving. It's early in the morning, super tired. And he drops that on me. And I'm like, bro, that's legit. Send that to me. So I shared it in the Facebook group. And then I shared it with you fine people here on the podcast and on our Facebook Live.
Your ear holes have been blessed.
Your ear holes.
Your ear orifices.
Gosh darn.
What?
We're really good at taking like good moments and just twisting them to be.
No, man, that Casey T, man, he's always got those knowledge bombs that he's dropping.
He dropped a fat knowledge bomb. I looked over him and was like, bro, you totally just wrote a Devo.
Daily Devo.
The episodic Devo.
Hashtag
Daily Devo. So yeah, he anyways, that's kind of what, went to Colorado again. Got a new job coming on the horizon. I don't have to talk too much about that, but some shifts happening in my life, and so that's
Good
pretty
stuff.
cool. Yeah. What about you?
I did not hike or climb a mountain. I'm actually coming up on, I talked a little bit about it, but a 75-day challenge that I was doing. So I'm down 22 pounds right now. I haven't measured how many inches I am. I mean, I haven't taken measurements, but that challenge ends on Tuesday.
Nice.
So I'm pretty excited. It's been good for me to make the shifts that I've been wanting to make. I mean, it's been so good mentally and emotionally, physically. I mean, it's just been really, really good. haven't felt like sludge every day. It's easier waking up, and I don't have the headaches and all that stuff. So that's been really good. I've been excited about that. And I was just telling you today, you called me and I was finishing up at the gym and we were chatting, but I'm going to restart something again for 30 days. I think taking this journey and putting it into chunks and challenging myself is you can't see, but he just moved my laptop out of the way.
It's okay.
He's all about product placement.
That's right. Yeah.
So, but anyways, yeah. So I'm getting ready to start on this next time, but I'm excited because one of the things of the challenge is I haven't had a beer in 75 days.
No beer.
And so I'm excited to have a beer and then start back up the challenge. Yeah.
Well, all right. Yeah.
Anyways,
I guess one of these days we'll have to talk about drinking.
There's nothing to talk about. It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah. All right. Well,
there you go.
It's whatever you pagans want to believe about.
Hey, we have a little bit of. Oh wait, you had mentioned very briefly. I know we're taking a little minute to get into this, but dude, the Doghouse, our Facebook group has been popping this last week.
Yeah,
we've had lots of new members coming in. We've had lots of really good conversation going on.
Doghouse.
Yeah. So Facebook, go and search in your search bar, Salty Dogs Christian Podcast Group.
Right.
And you can join. We keep it private, but you can go ahead and just pop on and ask to be a member, and then we'll let you in. And so there's no prerequisite for that.
Right. Except that you have an open mind.
Pretty much.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, we're just going to assume that
you have an open mind.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, we just
speaking of open minds.
Well, hold on. We've been sharing encouragement. I've been trying to be really encouraging lately, but that's just kind of where I'm at in my walk. But we want to create a quote unquote safe space for people to ask questions. We know a lot of people are inquiring, and it's just asking the questions that we've kind of talked about on the podcast. Like if there's a certain doctrine or belief or whatever it is that you just kind of want to mull over in the group, like we want you to be able to ask there and not get blasted for it.
Right.
So.
I mean, well, you're not going to have anyone, I would hope, question your salvation or invite you out to a coffee meeting and say, you know what, brother, I'm just really worried about you. You're on some dangerous, slippery slope.
You just need to be careful. I just
love you.
This is a warning in love, brother.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're not going to do that. But yeah, speaking of open minds,
right?
Or salt. So
we had some true salt come through.
We did. We had
it's that Himalayan.
Oh my gosh.
Natural.
Yeah. So this is our Pass the Salt segment on the Salty Dogs podcast, and this is where we read a review or message or an email. And we actually got so on Facebook you can recommend pages and organizations and stuff like that. So typically I'll get an email or I'll click on the little notification icon and it'll say Salty Dogs received or so-and-so recommends the Salty Dogs podcast. And the other day one popped up, it says does not recommend the Salty Dogs podcast. And where were you? You were coming back from Dallas?
No,
you were.
No, I woke up.
But you were in Dallas.
Maybe Andy. I was in Dallas.
I remember.
I woke up to it. We were me and my brother went on a trip. So I woke up and I don't know how you felt. Well, actually, I know how you felt about it. But when I saw it, I actually smiled and I was like, thank God that we finally have someone that has said that they don't agree with what we say everything to our faces, because I'm sure it happens, behind.
Well, yeah, and it's the majority of people will either leave a bad review and never listen again, or just never listen again. It's like when you go to a restaurant.
Right.
If I have a bad experience, I'm just not going to go back to the restaurant. Rarely will I give a bad review and not go back.
Right.
But so on our Facebook page, we're not going to give his last name, but it says Steve doesn't recommend Salty Dogs podcast, and it's just one line. It says well-meaning, but does not believe the Bible is the Word of God.
And you actually, I think, responded and had a little, we don't have to read that right now, but you actually had a little conversation back and forth, which I thought was cool because I really am all about conversations. People don't have to believe the way that I believe, and that's fine. But I thought that was even cool that he responded back and, kind of had some dialogue. So
yeah, there was a little bit of dialogue that went back and forth. And, I just basically I said, oh, okay, well, is there a specific episode that you listened to that made you think that way? Mm-hmm. And then I went on to say, and just because, like, if we have a guest on and we don't believe if I don't align 100% with what they're saying, usually I'll kind of ask questions to try and get more information.
Yeah.
And if it looks like I'm condoning what they're saying, I think you can get it conflicted with, I'm interested to hear more and I want to know about why they think that way. And so if I'm indulging them in that line of thinking, it's not that I'm like, yeah, brother, 100%. Maybe I'm just trying to get more information.
Sure.
And, you know, I don't think we've ever, like, on the podcast told anybody they're flat out wrong for something that they thought about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would go against I think we value the process, you know, the process that people go through. I think we value people's journey because, you know, you and I are just different people than we were 3 years ago. You know, when we had Cody on, Cody talked about, you know, looking back 3 years and looking at yourself and who you were then. And, you know, if you're not different in some way, you know, is the work of Christ, you know, is he at work in your life? And not necessarily saying with, you know, messing around with your beliefs and stuff like that, but I really do value the process. And so, Steve, I'm very thankful that you just shared what was on your mind with us. So thank you for that. Thanks for not recommending us. And and I don't mean that in a bad way.
So Steve, in the way that Jesus was transfigured on the mountain and his clothes shone bright white with the glory of heaven upon his person, I pray that your cheeks are transfigured right before the eyes of those around you into a bright rosiness.
Can I make a joke?
From heaven. Do you want to make a joke?
Steve, I would carry your pack an extra mile. I would turn the other cheek. What else does Jesus... I'm kidding. I'm joking. He's not my enemy. Steve, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
All of the air out of the tire just there. Oh my gosh. Womp, 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 womp. This might be the first time I actually insert a like fail sound into the boo.
Oh no, I'm just kidding.
All right.
Okay,
all right.
So we got a pretty cool topic today.
Let's do it. Let's dive in.
Here's the cool thing about this topic is that we actually threw it out to the Salty Dogs, you know, podcast group.
Doghouse?
The Doghouse. Like we said, hey guys, we have a couple topics that we're thinking of. What would you guys prefer to hear? And so the majority voted for the topic that we have tonight. So what's that topic, Jason?
So we're going to talk about kingdom vision for marriage and family. And so kind of what we did just the other day, I got home and I needed to pull some chicken. So I decided to do that in a public forum. And so I pulled some chicken while I was standing in my kitchen on Facebook Live inside of our group on the Doghouse Facebook group. And I'm just going to do that every time now.
Man, that's fine.
And so anyways, you and I just kind of started talking about like, hey, what do you think we ought to be covering tomorrow night? And which is tonight. And we threw out a couple things and we said, well, maybe we'll throw up a poll. So that's what we did in our Facebook group. We threw up a poll. And so we had the most votes for kingdom vision for marriage and family. And so that...
What was the other topic?
The other topic was like different, like alternative church paradigms.
Like expressions of church.
Expressions of church. So like house church / small group.
You said equipping
ministry, missional communities, all those kinds of things.
Different expressions
alternative
outside of
expressions,
the traditional.
Outside of a traditional like Sunday morning gathering with a big organization. So I think we'll cover that at some point in time. But we wanted to honor the voting system. We're a democratic entity here, unless the Lord intervenes, and then He's king. So what He says goes. So we're covering this topic. And so that kind of stemmed out you telling me a little bit about you and Lara getting away and spending a lot of time talking. And so Lara's your wife. I'm just letting the listeners know. You know who your wife is. And so you guys got away, spent a lot of time talking. And that time together to really focus and talk about life and really be able to take a breath and get rid of like being taskmasters and that kind of stuff. You were able to kind of get a little bit of vision. Yeah.
Master.
Where's the dreams that I've been after? Laughter. All right, a little Metallica for you guys. You guys were really able to kind of look at your life and say, okay, here are some things that we want to do and kind of get some direction, right? So you were able to do that. Me and Kim, we were able to do the same thing a couple months ago, and that has really kind of shifted the trajectory of our life.
Yeah, man. And I remember you came back, and I mean, we talked for about 45 minutes or something on the phone. You were just sharing just how much good came from it.
Right. And so I think where we're going to talk about is like maybe the importance of getting some kingdom vision for your marriage and for your family, because even so, as a family, you've been talking about how you guys are kind of rearranging life to shift to missional focus. And so I don't want to give it all away, but that's kind of the route we're going to go.
Right. I mean, we've our family, the Cernas, and your family, the Villanuevas, have basically begun to reorient, our lives to move towards a specific goal. which we really didn't have before getting away, at least for our family. I don't know if your family had that, but what we found is that we have dreams. Lara and I both have dreams, and that we don't talk very much about those dreams, just because you get so busy in the daily grind, and get up and you go to work, and kids just started school again. We had school start back up, so parents are trying to get in the rhythm of school, and then kids are too. And Sterling's been like, he's been adjusting to school. So I mean, your family, and then you just get used to the rhythm of go 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 go, and then of that. What
happens? You get to this place where it becomes you're just kind of managing and maintaining.
Yeah.
So that the majority of your interactions with your spouse become scheduling. Right.
Right.
So like I'll message my wife on a daily basis. We're on like Google Chat or whatever it is, Hangouts, Google Hangouts.
Yeah.
And so we talk the majority of the day through Hangouts, but a lot of the times it's like, hey, what do you have going on this weekend? Oh, hey, I got to schedule this video shoot. Hey, what are we doing October 12th? Hey, hey, is it okay if and it's just trying to like juggle all of the crazy schedule things.
Right.
And so it's really easy to get into a rut to where you're just, like it's not necessarily bad, but you're just kind of in management mode rather than like in vision mode.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe let's take a moment and define what we think a kingdom vision is and how that pertains to marriage and family.
Right. I mean, the first thoughts that I have when it comes to kingdom vision is like actually going to the Lord and saying, God, what is your vision for our family? And I think that's going to look different for every family, and so taking that time, and not just you. I mean, oftentimes, like there's kind of one person in the marital relationship that tends to maybe lean in a little bit more on the leadership side. And so not just me doing this, or just Lara doing this, or just you or Kim, but coming together as a marriage team, as a family team, and like asking, praying together out loud and seeking, God, what do you have for our family? So when you say kingdom vision for marriage and family, I just think of going to God and asking God instead of, maybe just pursuing our own hopes and desires, but actually going and giving God input. Like, Lord, what do you want to see happen?
Well, yeah, because we're in America. And so just kind of, and I'm sure this is like, earth-wide, worldwide, everybody's trying to exist. They're trying to, have food in their stomachs and shelter, for their family. We're in a country where we get to be educated and have careers, and like we get to save and look forward to retirement and do all these things. It's just like traditional Western
the American
dream, right? Own a house. Like we have all these things, like, and it's so easy to get caught in a rut of just trying to maintain those things, right? Like I have to go to my job because I have to make the money to pay for my house and, to pay the bills and to have a car so that I can drive to work to pay for a house and pay right. So it's just this like endless cycle. And I think that if we're doing that just to do that, very quickly we can get burnt out.
Oh yeah.
And we get super hopeless with like, what is this life even for? Like this freaking sucks.
Yeah.
So I recently switched jobs like back in February into a new job, and I was just ready for a move. Well, I thought that this switch was going to essentially make me happy or whatever. And I remember messaging my wife one day, and it took a little bit of it took some guts for me to actually message her to let her know that I was a little bit discontent with where I was at.
Right. Because you had just made a switch.
I just made a switch. I had to swallow some pride. Right. And so anyways, I finally just, I said to her, I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm tired of wasting away in this stale box. Right. And I'm talking about just sitting at my desk like 8 hours a day. It's like all these walls around me with false lighting, and like I'm just there and I'm doing this work on this computer. And she was like, geez, drama queen, right? Because like I'm like, oh, I'm wasting away in this stale box.
They're closing in. I can't breathe.
Yeah. But seriously, like I was really getting tired of the grind, bro. And that's what I call it. Like, man, just on the grind. Like, and so for our family, we have debt that we need to get paid off. I have a big school loan, like just, a little bit of transparency there. And so, dude, it feels a little hopeless.
Yeah.
Sometimes you look at those big numbers and then you look at your paycheck and then you look at all your expenses and you're just like, oh my gosh, it just makes you sick and it sucks the life out of you.
Yeah.
And so I think the way that the Lord kind of rejuvenated our marriage and kind of, helped to see that our family was going in a direction, not just living in this like circular, this machine, just a cog in a wheel, essentially, or a cog in the machine. I believe he gave us some kingdom vision for our family. And
but before you go there, I want to ask you a question. So what did, before you go into that, what did your household feel like? Describe to me the atmosphere that was in your home. I mean, we're honestly going to be very transparent today, but like, talk to me about the environment that your home, what it felt like when you guys were just on the grind, constantly go. Like,
I mean, there's moments of, and I guess I didn't really even describe kingdom vision either, but let me go back. Let me reverse and hold on to that question because I want to get to that because I kind of started getting into something else. Kingdom vision, again, I just want to agree with I want to echo what you said about really seeking the Lord and saying, hey, what is your vision for this whole thing?
Yeah.
What do you want to see happen through this? And I have
this partnership, this marriage,
this
family.
partnership, this marriage, this family. And so I want to give this scripture real quick just to kind of contextualize this. It says in Ephesians 2, verse 10, for we are his workmanship or his masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. There's another scripture that says that for those who he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed into the likeness of his Son.
Yeah.
And so when I talk about life in general, I think that there's an ultimate goal, and then I think there's like things that will happen that we get to be a part of that aren't necessarily the destination, but the journey. So our destination is to be conformed into the likeness of Christ.
Right.
Like all of our life points to us being conformed into his image.
Being more like Jesus.
Being more like Jesus. And so he has already looked at us and he said, and now we're in Christ, he says, your destiny is to be conformed into the likeness of my Son. And so everything that happens, all of the journey to that destination is functioning to transform us into the likeness of Christ and also to bring the will of the Father to earth as it is in heaven, to usher into his kingdom, right? And so as we are conformed into the image of Christ, which primarily was a human being who was 100% obedient to the will of the Father, the good works predestined.
Yeah.
Right? So as Jesus walked the face of the planet, he only did what he saw the Father doing, and he was only doing what was the will of the Father. And so that's where we're headed. And so as we're being conformed to the image of Christ, we're continually seeking what God wants, and then we're living that out.
Yeah.
See how that works together?
Yeah.
So as I'm seeking the Lord and he's transforming me, he's showing me and leading me and guiding me in the way that he wants, in the way of his vision for my family and for my marriage.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important because I think we can easily get caught up in this system of doing good things, but maybe they're not the things that God wants us to do. I mean, especially, I'm not going to pick on the church today, but you could just start doing all of these really good things, but you could be missing what God has for your family. But if we're not seeking and listening, not just asking, but actually making it a point to listen, then we could miss out on something huge. We like to say it this way in our community. We say, I totally just forgot what we say. It's something along the lines of just, oh, did we just
say this thing all the time that I forget that we say.
Like, oh wait, I just forgot it. But ask Jesus and do whatever he says. Like, and it sounds like a cop out, but it's really not. Like, really go ask Jesus, because I could give you my opinion, but I'm not Jesus. I don't know the overall scheme of things. Like, I don't know what your destiny is like,
right?
But God does,
right?
So go ask him and then do whatever he says.
It's as simple as reading that scripture and saying, okay, it says that you prepared works beforehand that I should walk in them. So what are those works?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people, so you can get into this whole will of God thing, right? Like, well, what is and there are theological terms for this, but essentially, like, is there a generic will, like it's God's will that we love our neighbor? But then is it God's specific will that you go and show love to your neighbor John by taking him a meal when he says, go take John a meal?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So there's an overarching will, and then there's like a very specific will, and I can't remember what they're called. It's, again, theological terms that I've forgotten. But Yeah, I think you can get into that, and I can say, okay, Lord, what is your will for my life? And he might just say, okay, that you go love people. And then you're like, okay, well, where are my opportunities to love people? Or he can answer specifically and say, all right, I'm sending you to this job in this part of the city to be around these people, and you're going to see very clear that there are going to be people around you that need to be loved.
Right. And that goes along the whole track of missional living, I don't want to deviate too much from the topic, but there's a pastor, Rob Wagner in Kansas City, who, a big thing that they talk about is they do this missional living type thing. And they pray this prayer, every time they step out the door, Jesus, show me where you're already at work. Like, show me the people, the areas, the things that you're already doing. Right. And then how can I help you along?
Right. It sounds like that. It sounds like that book, Experiencing God by Henry Blackaby. He says, see where God's working and then go there.
And then join him. And join him in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I want to talk real quick because I want to kind of give some background, because I think this is important as well. And I haven't forgot about your question. I just don't feel like we're there yet. Sorry.
I just really want to talk. I haven't been listening to a word you're saying.
Really?
No, I'm kidding.
So I think it's important that we actually believe that God has some sort of divine plan for our marriage and our family that is going to impact his kingdom, right? Because we pray your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Your kingdom come. And
What's up, Matthew?
And so we have to, I think you're going to confuse people on the audio if you keep doing that.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying hi.
I know. We have to think about both audiences, Christopher.
Okay, fine.
Hi, John. Hi, Greg. Hi, Marcia. Now I'm just naming all the Brady Bunch people. Marcia. So we actually have to believe that God has a kingdom plan for our family, which says, okay, God, like, I'm yours, I'm your child. And now I'm married and I have kids. And so I have to believe that all of that is part of what you're wanting to do. It's not like my family and my marriage is separate from my ministry or the predestined works that I'm to walk in.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like I'm doing the will of the Lord. Oh, and I just so happen to have a family. I have to believe that all of that is all part of God's plan. And so that kind of gets into the whole sovereignty thing. But if you would allow me, I want to start by us telling how we met our wives and why we believe that the marriage we're in has been ordained by God and that he has something greater for it.
Well, you're making an assumption that I believe that about my marriage.
You better, or we'll have to.
I'm kidding. Yeah. Yes, I totally believe that.
And now a break from the podcast while Christopher figures his crap out. So are you okay with doing that?
Yeah. You want to start?
Yeah, I do.
Go for it.
So I have a really interesting story about how I met my wife. And Kim, when she was asking me about what we were going to be talking about tonight, I told her kingdom marriage and, or kingdom vision and all that stuff. And she was like, I think this would have been a really great episode for you to have your wives on.
Dude, I thought the same thing.
And I was just like, well, here we are again. Like the one day that we talked about toxic masculinity, we didn't have women on, you know, so we're not those people. I'm not of that camp. And I'm
honestly,
not of those
if we just had the margin, I mean, we would have had him here. If I would have had childcare, and I'm sure if you had had childcare.
Well, it's true because I said, well, you can come. She's like, no, I can't. I knew exactly what she meant.
Right.
Who's going to want you? Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah. But one of these days we'll get him on. But anyways, I told her, I said, I'm probably going to tell the story about how we met. And she was like, oh, I've never actually heard it from your side. And so I'll try and tell as fast as I can. So Kim and I met in like 2011, near the end of 2011, after we started our church here in the north side of Wichita. She's the sister of Christine, who was on our launch team.
And has also been on the podcast.
And Kim's been on before too. So, yeah. But anyways, so she started coming to our church, and she was actually going through a divorce at that time, which was kind of crazy. And she was kind of away from the Lord for a while. And anyways, the message that broke her was this message I was preaching about the Father's love. But then I was preaching, and it was the craziest thing. I was saying God's going to raise up some men who are going to marry up some of these single women and some of these single moms in this church. Oof. And he's going to redeem and right. And I just I spoke it out.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, sitting in the front was this woman who I didn't know was going to end up being my wife, who has Henry, our son from her first marriage. And anyways, so the Lord actually used me as a pastor in her life for a couple years and actually helped her work through some of the hurt from the divorce that she was carrying. Well, once she kind of, and so now I'm kind of telling her story a little bit, but the story goes that she's working through this. She finally finds some healing through all of that pain, and she's praying to the Lord. She's saying, Lord, I'm totally fine with it just being me and you.
Yeah.
And we were friends. I have to say that we were just friends.
Yeah.
I
I remember going and hanging out with you guys and stuff like that. It was I would agree. It was totally just a friend.
Yeah,
thing.
she was part of our staff and, quote unquote staff. And so we did things together all the time. We hosted dinners. We had friends over. She's a part of our Bible study. She hosts we're just working together, doing the ministry doing the ministry together or whatever, and really truly just friends. And just me being the guy that I was, I had my eye on other relationships, and
yes,
and so
well, I just was agreeing with you.
Yeah. So anyways, so she's praying to the Lord and she's saying, God, I'm totally fine with it just being you and me. Like, I'm so glad we're you're so awesome. She's praising him, whatever, praying, and she says, I can be single for the rest of my life and I'll be totally fine with that. And the Lord spoke to her and said, well, you're going to marry Jason, and told her this in prayer. So number one, her response to God was, no, I don't think you just heard me. I said, I'm okay being single.
Yeah. Right.
And she says, and he says to her, no, you're going to marry Jason. And so she's like freaking out, like, what am I hearing? Am I hearing God? Am I hearing me? And so she goes and tells her sister, and Christine's just like, oh, I don't think you're hearing God. And she's like, no, I think it's the Lord, because why would I just make that up? Why would I just think that out of this, the sky?
Right.
And so she held on to that. And,
for how long?
For 2 years.
Before she told you?
Yeah.
Dang.
So the Lord told her that, and also told her, you're not to say anything to him. You're going to wait for me to bring him around. He's going to have to come around. And so anyways, for 2 years, she watched me flirt and kind of be after these other girls, and I say girl, let me just tell you, there was one or two that I ever had any kind of maybe that's going to be a thing.
And this was crushing,
Yeah. So that, and anyway, so she stuck around. I say that we were doing ministry. We're still friends.
Yeah.
I was tight with her family, all that stuff. Really, truly friends. Well, earlier in the summer, where do I want to go with this? It was winter. Okay, so it was winter of 2013. So remember, I met her late 2011, and it was early, or maybe it wasn't 2 years then, maybe it was a year and a half. Anyways, timeline doesn't matter as much. So December 2013, I'm sitting in the movie theater on Christmas Day by myself in Wichita, Kansas, because my family's in Houston. So
your family was in Houston?
Well, that's where they live.
Well, I was here.
Okay, whatever.
Could have invited me.
I was wallowing in my pastor singleness, and I went to a movie by myself. And as I was sitting there waiting for the movie to start, 45 minutes before the movie, there I am, I got nothing else to do.
Totally a loser.
Super loser,
Goodness.
yeah. And so I was on my phone, and I got an email that was Groupon, and it was 50% off Match.com membership. And I was like, screw it.
Dude, that's a good deal. 50% off, man.
You're a bargain hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is before Tinder and all the crazy apps, right?
Right.
And by the way, I've never used Tinder. I'm just saying, anyways, that I got married, and then I think it came out. So if I have used it, well, then I'd be in trouble. But I've not. So anyways, Match.com, I'm like, screw it. I'm doing it. I buy the Groupon. I'm sitting there. I'm starting to set up the profile, right? And then I'm like, oh, I'll just finish that later. And then I'm like, what the heck am I doing? I'm like, God, what am I doing? This is so stupid. I need to trust in you. And I start coaching myself. So then I'm like, well, I'm going to cancel it. And I'm going to get my money back. Right. So I just had this brief moment where I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. Well, that's Christmas Day. Well, a couple days later, I decide that I'm going to reach out to a girl that I had kind of seen earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, New Year's Day, I'm going to message her. I'm going to say, what's up? I'm going to try and maybe pursue that relationship.
Pastor Jason, you are really of the flesh, man.
Dude. Well,
goodness.
Bro, let me tell you, we need to have an entire freaking episode about about me being a single male pastor. That was crazy. But anyways, so I make this decision in my heart. I'm going to reach out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to go find me a wife, right? Like I'm saying, guys pursue women all the time. I'm going to go pursue that. I'm going to win her over. Like I'm saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And so I was going to do that on January 1. I was going to send this message on December 30th. I have some people over at my house. I get a phone or a message from Kim. She says, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, I think she's going to leave the church because this is what pastors think when people need to talk to them, right? And so she's like, I really need to talk to you. And I'm like, oh, well, I've got people over. Can we do it tomorrow? Or what is it? Are you leaving the church? She's like, I'm not leaving the church, right? She's like, I just really need to talk to you. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm meeting with some people. As soon as they leave, I can come over.
Right.
So these people left. I go over to the house. It's like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, what's up?
Oh,
and
my
you could
God.
tell
You just broke a huge pastor.
I know,
thing.
right?
10 p.m. alone?
Yeah.
Was there someone else there?
Her son.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you know.
all right.
And so I walk into the house, and I can tell that she'd been crying. I'm like, you okay? What's going on? And she's just like, I don't know how to say this, but I just have to say this. And she was just like, she's like, so many months ago or a year ago or whatever it was, God told me that I'm supposed to marry you. She just dropped it on me. And so I sat there quiet for a second. And then I go, you know, Kim, I was like, you're the second woman I've had this conversation with today. And I'm such a jerk. She looks at me. I'm like, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. And then for some reason, the first question out of my mouth after that was like, do you think I'm handsome? Like I wanted to know if she thought I was attractive.
Right.
But here's the interesting thing about it.
What'd she say?
About what?
Did she think you were handsome? Or she's like, God just told me yes. Yeah, I didn't really have a choice, Jason.
Right. So, but here's the thing. Over months,
right,
I essentially like found every reason as to why I didn't think that she could be my wife or would be my wife.
Yeah.
And so there were moments where the Lord had like kind of shown me some things, but I just rejected it because it didn't fit like where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Right. And it didn't fit the narrative that I thought was supposed to play out for marriage. Mm-hmm. And we were just friends. And like, there were moments where I was like, is she into me? Like that kind of stuff. And then her sister, Christine, would just be like, she would tell me like, well, you know, she's not in love with you, right? Like, you just need to know she's like not in love with you. And I guess there were times where she saw that I thought that Kim liked me. And so she would just reassure me, she's not in love with you, which was the truth. She wasn't in love with me, but the Lord had told her that we were supposed to be married. So every time Christine said that, I backed off, way off, because I'm not one to want to get rejected.
Yeah.
So we just had this weird dynamic for a long time. And I think I called you right after that when I left her house. Do you remember that?
I do.
And I called you and told you all about it. And anyways, I just was praying one day, and I was asking the Lord. And so this was like, I don't know, 10 days after we had this conversation. And I was praying to God, and I just kind of had this epiphany. And I said to the Lord, I said, you know, I'd be a fool if I felt like, or if I really believed that I could create a better scenario.
Yeah. Because
of the friendship and the way that all happened, and we were in ministry, loved the Lord, like it was cool with her family. We're truly friends.
Right.
Like,
yeah. I mean, I would agree. There was a friendship there. Yeah. Inside jokes, all that stuff.
Right. All that stuff. And so anyways, that was kind of how we ended up getting together. And so that was in early January, and then we got married in June of 2014. And so through all of that, long story short, right? All of that to say, like, I saw the Lord's hand in all of that and the way that he brought us together.
Yeah.
So I have to believe that there's a reason for our marriage. There's a kingdom purpose for our marriage. It's not just so that I can have a wife and
have guilt.
And exactly. Yeah. Have guilt, all that stuff. Right. So I can have someone to snuggle with at night and like not have to go to movies alone on Christmas night and sign up for Match.com.
Yeah.
Right. So that's not the purpose. There's a greater purpose in all of it.
For sure.
And it starts with that story. Now, I don't know that everybody has that, but for me, I have that.
I can top it. I'm just kidding. I'm going to try to make
one of your volunteers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, let me just tell you, if you're out there and you're thinking about going into ministry and you're a single guy,
just be a youth pastor.
You will get married so stinking fast.
You will. Yep. Anyways, so I'm going to try to tell our story pretty quick. So I moved up here 2012, I had actually just gotten out of a pretty serious relationship. We were dating for 2 years, and we just weren't happy. But it hurt nonetheless, and so I broke up, or I got broken up with, and so I came up here just out of my hurt, and just came up here to make a trip just to see you. And you were like, "Come on, bro." And so I got to come up here, and I was up here, and then while I was up here, I wrestle with this story because I want to have an episode on calling and talk about calling one day, but I felt called. And the live viewers can see I'm doing quotes.
Quotes, yeah, you felt
there
called.
was definitely, and I don't know if it's I just wanted to move up here or really what, but I mean, obviously God had a purpose for me to come up here. So I moved up here, became the youth pastor at a church, and did that. And actually, before I moved up here, I'll tell the story when I first saw Lara. They flew me up here to go to like a youth conference with all the kids, just so I could get around everybody. And no one really knew. It was Acquire the Fire. It was ATF. Yep. And so they flew me up here to do that. And I remember seeing Lara and her mom. They were walking around together. And I just remember thinking like, oh, Lord, I have stumbled. Like she's hot. And I thought, man, she is really good looking.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah. I was like, you did good. You did good, God.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I mean, I remember seeing her, and I actually had a conversation with her mom on the trip. And so I remember very specifically, it was during worship, and her mom started crying, and I just happened to be sitting right next to her, and someone's crying next to me. And so I was able to pray with her, comfort her, pray for Lara before, I even knew anything about her. But
you got to pray for Lara.
So no, I got to pray for Penny, her mom.
Okay.
So I prayed with her while she was weeping, but she was weeping over her daughter. She's had some health stuff she was going through.
Yeah.
So anyway, I didn't think anything of it. I flew back home, and then I moved up here. Well, anyways, I ended up starting a singles group, which also you don't have to become a youth pastor. Just start a singles group and then marry the hottest girl in there. So
pretty much.
Yeah. So I started
solid tactic, bro.
I started a singles group. And that really wasn't my purpose, but the reasoning. But I started a group. There really wasn't anything for college age kids. So I did that and invited Lara, got her phone number. And at first I was just like, so I thought, this girl is so cute. I'm just diving right into the friend zone. Like, there's no way this is happening.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
you friend zoned yourself.
I did. I was like, she's not going to friend zone me. I'm going to friend zone myself. Yeah. And so I ended up just saying, hey, we're going to be friends. And that was probably one of the best decisions I ever could have made, because I took all the pressure off. Now, obviously, I still really liked her a lot, but I told myself that there's no chance.
There's
so
no way.
Long story short, we ended up hanging out quite a bit over the summer with me, her, and two other friends. We hung out like every day. And the cool thing was we hung out with her family a lot. So every interaction I had with her was also around her family. So I really got to know her family. They got to know me, and kind of just this friendship mode. I'm going to fast forward to Halloween of that year. So we'd probably been good friends for, 6 months or so. And I ended up telling her.
During Halloween, bro, you're just killing that pagan lifestyle.
Yes.
Rock it.
I ended up telling her that how I felt about her, and just letting her know, like, hey, I need to know if you feel the same way. If you don't, that's fine. But I really care about you a lot, and I see you as more than a friend. And so she agreed. She said, I definitely feel something for you too. Like, I know there's something here. So, but the crazy thing is we didn't start dating then. I mean, asked her.
Happy dance.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that was the happiest ride home of my life. I was on cloud nine. I was so, someone loves me. I'm not a potato. Or, she just at least liked me. So, so I ended up asking her out 3 times, and she said no 3 times. But here's the crazy thing is that in her mind, I mean, at this point in my life, my calling was ministry, was full-time pastoral ministry.
Oh, yeah.
And so for her, she was really wrestling with this idea of, can I be a pastor's wife?
Right.
There were a lot of really amazing women. I mean, our pastor's wife, Michelle, she was awesome. And so she was comparing herself going, I'm not like her. Like, I'm not as awesome as her. There's no way I can be her. And just, there was a lot of really amazing women in our church. And so she's just like, I don't know if I can be a pastor's wife. And I remember praying the prayer. I was like, all right, God, like, I really like her. She doesn't know if she can do this. So Lord, if it is not in the cards, like any version of your plans for me to be with her, then just end it, just remove it. Like, we can just be friends, but remove her from my life. And so I'll never forget it the next day. So that was a really hard prayer to pray.
Get that girl out of my face.
Get that girl out. So, but every time I'd prayed that prayer in my life, God always removed that thing. So very rarely the thing that I wanted was the thing that God wanted. So that was, in my mind, I already said, well, God's going to remove it. Her. So the next day we were hanging out at her parents' house, and she told me, man, you know what? I don't know what's going on, but I just have peace about, like, I feel like I can do this. Like, I feel like I can be a pastor's wife. So there was this, I mean, there's the God moment. It's like, yes, it was. And so even then, though, we didn't start dating. We didn't start dating until the end of the year. And so December 2013, we started dating. No, 2012, we started dating. December 2012. I proposed March of next year, or May of next year, and then we were married September of that year.
So how many months was that?
So, I mean, we had like a
4-month engagement.
May, June, July, August. So it was like 4-month engagement. Yeah. So we planned it real quick.
Like boom, boom, boom.
Right. And so that was our story. But there was definitely that moment where God just kind of, I mean, he flipped the switch, man, and he made it happen. At that point, though, I had no clue what marriage was about. I mean, to me, I was just so happy that I was no longer alone and that I had someone. And so I think, ministry created so much tension in our marriage and in our family.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we just had a conversation about this the other day. But I really think that, dude, if a lot of pastors' wives were honest, they would say that they're miserable in their marriages and, and kids. And not because their husband is a bad man, but because it's constantly like ministry, the demands, but ministry always trumps all. It's like the God card. You can't beat it. Like, what's more important than saving souls, right? And winning people over? There's nothing more important than that. Air quotes. Like, you can't trump that. So I don't know how many times this happened with you, but me and Lara would often get into arguments right before I had to go teach or preach or do some meeting or do something or counsel someone. And it's like, Dad, like, I'm doing good stuff.
You
like,
play your first T-ball game, son. I'm going to go win souls for the kingdom.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And it's so unfortunate that that's the case, but so often ministry gets elevated above all. And so, that was a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. And I didn't realize how big of a deal it was until I was no longer in full-time ministry and that we were able to have some open conversations.
You don't realize what's
and
happening.
I'm gonna drop the statement that I shared with you the other day. But when I was a full, and I'm not saying that this is true of all pastors, but for me, in this case it was, and I believe that there is a majority that it's the same for them, but not all. When I was in full-time ministry, I was the least like Jesus that I've ever been in my entire life.
Right. You were the least like him when you were trying to do the most for him.
Right. Yeah. When I was doing his work, I was the least like him. Now, so I can also admit maybe that was me. Now, I'm not saying I was beating my wife or hitting my kids or, like I wasn't doing any of that stuff, but my heart was so angry about things. I mean, just little things would just set me. I mean, I did not, the fruits of the Spirit were not evident in my life. And our pastor's going to hear this and go, oh my God, we hired a terrible youth pastor. But like, it's just one of these things to where it's like, we didn't have that kingdom vision.
Right.
I thought that we had arrived there with full-time ministry. And
like that was it.
That was it. And then I ended up working for FedEx and we're on the grind. I'll just describe what our household was like. It was just busy, dude, all the time. Yep. Busy going to meet. And then when I worked for FedEx, like we had started attending a really big church here in town. And so of course I jump in, I volunteer, I'm at all the meetings and doing all that stuff. And so it's get home from work, go to the meetings, do this, do that, do all of the good things. But, God had other plans and ended up planning a church again and again, doing all the meetings and all that stuff. And really 2019 has kind of been a breakout year for us because I quit working and like getting a paycheck from the church that I'm actually currently pastoring. And dude, there's so much weight that's lifted because there's no paycheck involved. And, but that was the kingdom vision that God had for our family. Go all in on photography, start your photography business and I'll take care of you. And he has been. And so it was just this trip that we got away. So my kids went to Houston with my family for a week. Well, actually, I'll stop. You tell your story now. Like, you talk about your trip. Do you want to do that?
Do you want me to do that?
I don't know. I've just been talking for a minute.
Oh, that's fine. So, so what you're describing is kind of the busyness of life, like being in full-time ministry. Now you're not, but you're still in ministry. Like you're leading at Living Water Church.
I mean, but pretty much just just going, just on the grind all the time. So I really resonated with what you said about like, a lot of our conversations were about scheduling. Hey, I have this
Right.
coming up. Hey, I have that coming up. Hey, can we do this that night? Can I do this
Yeah.
that night? And so it was almost like we were just existing, but not really great friends. The friends that we once were,
Right.
not really that romance wasn't there. And it, I mean, doing the work of the Lord,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and I'm not knocking that. That's me. Like, that's me, not
Right.
setting that pace. But I'd never
But-
seen that modeled, man.
so-
I hadn't seen that modeled in the leaders I was under. I hadn't seen that modeled under, any mentors in my life. Like, it just, I didn't know what that looked like.
So here's how it felt. It was just like that. It was busy. There was always something to do. So I was getting really frustrated with like the house and the chores and the doing and
Yeah.
the doing and the doing. And so I was true. And we joke about me on the podcast being Martha, but truly in my home, I was Martha.
Right.
Because for some reason there's just something in me, personality, soul, whatever you want to call it, that I couldn't like sit on the couch and just be with my wife if like the house is dirty or the dishes were dirty, the trash needed to be taken out. Like it would upset me. And so I lived in a constant state of frustration that nobody else put on me other than myself.
Yeah.
I put that on me. And so I was very discontent, not only with that, but then also like, the debt situation with owing money on the car and the house. And
It's
the
just
credit
a lot of
cards,
stressful
a lot
stuff.
of stressful
Yeah.
situation. Wasn't so happy with the work situation. And then obviously because we don't have a lot of time, like my relationship with my wife was not all that great.
Because
And-
you were doing so much.
Because you're doing so
Right.
much, and so just caught in that grind. Plus, there's ministry of the source. There's the preaching. There's the doing this,
Side
the
jobs.
that,
You got a lot of side hustles.
So just a whole bunch of stuff going on. But you know what it was? The primary feeling was I felt like I was alone in it all. I felt like I was alone in trying to take care of my household. I felt like I was alone in trying to get out of debt. I felt like I
it
was
was like you were a one-man team. It didn't
I
feel
felt
like a team.
It didn't feel like a team at all.
Right.
But in the same way, she felt like she was alone.
Yeah.
We're both feeling the same thing.
Man, I agree. I would agree that Lara felt the same way, and so did I.
Right. Both feeling the same thing.
It's like this breakdown in communication.
And so honestly, like I'm sure she prayed too, but I remember praying very specifically for some things in my marriage and in my family. It's a weather alert.
Okay.
I remember praying very specific things for my marriage and my family. I remember praying about our debt. I remember praying about our health.
Right.
And just like the way that we ate and the way that we felt and looked. I mean, we just were eating whatever we wanted. We were spending money all over the place.
Yeah.
Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I felt like we were hemorrhaging money, and it was making me sick, like
Yeah.
to my stomach, anxious, and just like I was just dreading. I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're just digging ourselves in a hole more. And so I was not in a good place really. And so somewhere around the beginning of the year, I began to pray, and I said, Lord, can you just put us on the same page? Like, please, let's just get on the same page about finances, get on the same page about health. Like, just put us on the same page. Like,
Yeah.
we're for each other. We're not against each other. Like, we have to know that. And honestly, I believe it was that prayer that kind of put some things into motion, because she caught the bug.
Yeah.
And
I remember it was just like a light switch flipped, man.
well, yeah, and just to be completely, I guess, open and honest about everything, like we, or what's the word I'm looking for? Candid about everything. Yeah, we just decided, hey, we're going to get our family out of debt, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do. I mean, it's time. And so,
And did this happen when you
It's-
guys went out of town? Is this that?
no, not
Okay.
even yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Not yet. So at the beginning of this year, the Lord put on our hearts that here's what we called it, the year of the purge, that we would purge weight and we would purge stuff and we would
Dang.
purge debt.
That's legit.
So
You got any stuff that you don't need that I can have?
yeah, you can have all our crap, dude.
I
Seriously.
want it all.
You can have all our
The
crap.
God said this is the year of abundance for us. Just gather.
There you go, right.
Store
So,
up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
one man's
kidding.
trash, another man's treasure, right? So that began us really starting to kill some debt and putting all of our extra money, really getting a plan, doing the
Yeah.
whole debt snowball thing, all that. But then also my wife and I going on the ketogenic diet
Yeah.
and losing a bunch of weight together. So that was like huge.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's a big
Well,
deal.
dude, there's nothing like, pursuing something health like that, with your partner. I mean,
Well,
it just changes everything.
There's so much power And what does it say about, uniting or agreeing on something? Like there's power in the agreement.
I think they say there's power in the agreement.
There's power in the agreement. And so when we could come together and agree on finances and agree on our home and agree on that's, all that stuff, like the Lord showing us that. Like, I don't know what he spoke to her. I don't even know how to tell people to go and do that.
Right.
All I know is that I recognized the issue. I continually prayed to the Lord, and I just said, can you get us on the same page? And something shifted. And I'll tell you, we've had a really great year. And let me tell you, we've had some of the worst fights we've had in our marriage. We've been married 5 years. We've had some of the worst fights this year in marriage, but we've also taken some of the biggest steps as a family unit together.
Right. Becoming a team.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, I agree.
Satan did enough to separate us. So when we come together stronger, I think he ups his game.
Yeah.
And we don't need to get into theology about spiritual warfare and what we think Satan can do, but you can't help but notice that.
He can't do anything with hedges. Like the dude is terrified of bushes. Like he's like, dang it, another hedge
of protection. Dude, what would he even do in a maze?
Oh, greenhouses? If you want to you just put a greenhouse in your backyard. Satan ain't coming near that bad boy.
So let me tell you, let's fast forward. And I know this is a lot of story, but I think it's beneficial. So my wife and I, for our 5-year anniversary, went to Kansas City at the end of June. And honestly, it was the first time we've gotten away together alone in a long time.
Yeah.
Long time. We took a trip to DC one time together, and that was really great.
Well, you guys had just also this year went to Hawaii.
We went to Hawaii as a family.
But this is different because you two are getting away.
Her and I got in the vehicle together, and I was truly surprised, but I wasn't surprised that we talked nonstop from the moment we got in the car to the moment we got out of the car between Wichita and Kansas City.
I mean, that's like a 2.5, 3 hour drive.
3.5 hour drive,
something
whatever.
Like that.
We just talked and talked and talked and talked and talked. And what did we talk about? We talked about ministry. We talked about faith. We talked about theology and doctrine and beliefs and relationship with the Lord and like vision for his kingdom and like all that stuff. But it wasn't until the drive back that we actually had some conversation that shifted the entire trajectory of our family for this.
Yeah, and your life. I mean, your
lives.
Our lives. Yeah.
So, this doesn't have a lot to do with ministry. Like what the Lord's doing with the Source Wichita and like our teaching and our podcast and all that stuff, that's actually pretty separate from what's happening in our family right now. But the Lord really confirmed and doubled down on our debt situation, and I believe has gotten behind that in multiple ways. But essentially what happened is he gave us vision, which is not like, it's not out of the ordinary. It's not out of the norm. It's what a lot of people do. He really showed us how we could snowball our debt, but then he showed us that we could combine incomes with some of our family members and work together to pay down debt and then create investment.
Right.
And so we believe that as a family, we're essentially going to start this business together. And within less than 48 months, we're going to have hundreds of thousands of dollars paid off in debt and own multiple homes.
And you can also do this if you join this movement. And for $500,
oh gosh,
I'm just kidding.
Stop.
Kidding.
And
Pyramid schemes.
And so
it's
I know it sounds crazy, but here's why it's not crazy. It's not crazy because it has taken the grind out of the daily grind and has given us vision for the long run. So where I was hating going and sitting at a desk on a
now
daily,
there's purpose.
There's purpose.
Right.
And it's just a change of heart. Yeah. My circumstance hasn't changed. Well, it will change because I'm getting a new job. But we were still working towards a debt
away.
snowball.
Yeah.
We're still we're still trying to purge.
And knocking stuff out. I know
stuff.
You're telling me like every couple weeks, like, hey, dude, we just paid this off. Hey, man. And I think you guys are officially.
But here's what it has to do with, though. There's a ministry aspect to it, too, because the amount of freedom that we're going to acquire by essentially getting out of debt to be able to be, quote unquote, more free to go or do or give or support financially, it's going to be there, right? And so Scripture says straight up, man, in Proverbs, the borrower is the slave to the lender. If you owe some entity or somebody money and you have to work to pay that out, that is a form of slavery.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can disagree with me, but I'll tell you what, I felt like a slave. And you know why? Because for 3 years, like my daughter, who was born in 2016, for 3 years, I've had to drop her off to be raised by somebody else, somebody I know and love.
Yeah.
But I've had to pay money and watch my daughter grow up a couple hours at a time per day.
Yeah.
A couple of hours, Monday through Friday. I wake up, she gets up, 30 minutes, we're out the door. I'm in the car with her for 30 minutes, and then she's in the care of somebody else. I pick her up at night at 5:30. She goes to bed at 9. So what am I getting? 4 hours?
If you don't have anything scheduled.
If you don't have anything scheduled.
Right.
You know, but then if you've got all this other crap going on, ministry, all that other stuff, how much time honestly did I get to spend with my daughter, like waking hours, being able to like be around her and love her and know her? Dude, imagine.
It's tough, man. It's
4 years
heartbreaking
from
when
now,
you look at it that way.
4 years from now when she's 7, 5 years from now when she's 8 years old and we're completely out of debt and our cost of living is very low and we have residual income coming in.
Yeah.
Think about the amount of time that we're going to be able to spend together as a family. And look, right now I'm of the mindset that truly all we have in this life is relationships. That's the only thing that matters in this life.
I agree.
The amount of time that you spend with people that you know and love and, you know, caring for them. Like, you know, love God and love your neighbor. Well, part of loving your neighbor is actually being around them.
Right. And and the sucky thing is, unfortunately, our families are the ones that get shafted when it comes to the love. Like they are the ones that go without love, and oftentimes everyone else is getting the love. You know, the people in our ministries, our neighbors, these other people that we're serving or doing things, but it's our wives and our children and our husbands. You know, those people that are closest to us, that oxygen supply of love for them that hose gets stepped on.
Yeah,
again, and they don't get it. They go without.
Yeah, and it's and I'm not saying that the kingdom vision for my family is that we are debt free and then we own some properties and like that's the end of it. No, that's the beginning of it.
Yeah.
He's given me kingdom vision now to help me get through 4 years so that I can say what's next, God.
Yeah.
And he might reveal it tomorrow or the next day or the next day. But ultimately, we have all committed our lives. Kim and I have committed our lives to doing the will of the Father. And it's because we're his children and we know that he wants to bring his kingdom here and he wants to do things through us. And we've said yes to whatever he wants to do. And so because we've said yes to that, we're on a journey, and everything that is happening in our lives and the direction that he's giving us is only serving to bring about that purpose.
Yeah.
And so I can't, I'm not here to tell you how to create a kingdom vision for your family. Make sure that think one thing with ministry and one thing with your kids and one thing, I'm not here to give a formula, but I'm here to talk about the importance of actually seeking the Lord and saying, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Right. And so for my kids, let me just say for Alana and for Henry, my prayer for them is that they would know Jesus. My prayer is not that they would plug into some doctrine or go into some sort of ministry or be a part of some denomination or understand some sort of sect or doctrine or theological bend. Yeah. I want them to know Jesus, and however that expresses through denomination or paradigm.
But that comes from a place of knowing. It starts with knowing, and it's an outflowing of that.
Because if they can know Jesus, everything's going to be fine.
Yep.
Right? You're good. Even if you're persecuted, even if your life doesn't go, even if I have to weep and mourn over the persecution and the pain that you endure through the rest of your life, if I know that you know the Lord, then you have everything you need.
Yeah.
Would I rather you be safe and not know the Lord, or in constant danger and persecution and know the Lord? You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so I'm not wishing that on them, but ultimately I need to live my life in such a way that they see that there's relationship with God to be had.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yep. I've been talking a lot. You can go now.
So, I mean, it's interesting because we went to Kansas City too. So they just kind of...
If you want kingdom vision for your life, go to Kansas City with your spouse.
Yep, go to KC. It's going to happen. And so our kids went and stayed. So my family's in Houston. I'm from Houston, just like Jason. And so when I was down in Dallas with my brother, we took the kids down there, and my mom met us in Dallas, and then took them back, and then we drove back. So our household was kid-free for 7 days. And man, this is going to sound so bad, but it was amazing. I had so much. I mean, we missed them obviously, but we had so much time, and we did not fight once. We had so much fun together. It was really, really good. And just
I don't think we fought.
just like you guys, man, on the trip, like we talked the whole way there. But we had also known that this week was a turning point for our lives. Like we knew going into it. Our church has been all about missional living, and so Lara, like this idea that you. Anytime you step out your door, you are on mission, the mission of Jesus, and simply asking Jesus, where are you at work today, and how can I join you? Like
Right.
that. I mean, but just being aware where we work, live, play, study, all of that kind of stuff. Like we can be Jesus to people, and we can, as long as we're doing whatever He's leading us to do. But you got to have that antenna up. So we've been in this process before we start doing all of these good things. Like we need to become the family that Jesus wants us to be. The way that we have been viewing discipleship has also changed as well, because discipleship, I just don't think it happens in classes anymore, studies. Like it happens in the it's not one study or one class.
Right. I think
it's
a facet of it happens,
right.
but
But we've put all our chips in that, and we've neglected basically the aspect of life on life with someone. It's not the 3 or 4 big classes that they take, but the hundreds and thousands of little moments and interactions that you have with people in the everyday moments of life.
I agree.
So we have been wanting to invite people into our family. Okay. And so for us to be able to do that, we need to become a family worth joining. So we've decided to make huge changes in our family. And so we had an agenda. Like we had talked about it at the beginning of the week. Hey, when we go to KC, here are the big things that we're going to talk about. We talked about, what is how to care for mental health. I mean, just all sorts of different things like in our lives, like, what our family dinner is going to look like, because part of being a bomb family is actually eating at a table with one another, like all of that stuff. So we had plans to go to IKEA and, redo the kids' room. But so we got in the car and we talked the whole way. And we had a couple of really big revelations. And I'll just kind of go through some of those. But number one, like I said, that this was an amazing week, without the kids, and we didn't fight. It really revealed a heart issue in me, because all of the fights that I think that are caused are because, I can take a step to stop those. I cannot respond in anger. I can do something to change those things. All of the times that I get mad about little things that happen, when my son spills milk, or when, I ask my daughter to pick something up 4 times and she doesn't do it, and then I lose my stuff and I yell, and like all of those things are hard issues with me.
right.
And so I think it was almost like having them out of the picture. You can go, it would be easy to go, oh, our life would be so much easier without kids, when that's not the case at all. I think our life would be easier if I just was going to God every day and allowing Him to bear fruit in my life, and not, creating an environment where I'm just I'm probably making myself sound like a terrible person when I'm really just trying to be transparent and honest and open. Like, I really do think a majority of the households deal with this kind of stuff. We're behind closed doors. I mean, husbands and wives are arguing
Right.
and fighting. No one's making changes. And so for me, I was like, I got to lead the way in this.
You
But
do.
Lara also said, I got to lead the way in this.
Right.
So if both of us are trying to lead the way in
Right.
this, like trying to make the best decisions we can,
Well,
it's going to be really, really good.
But what happens is you create an environment of contention if you keep thinking, well, she needs to change, and she keeps thinking you need to change.
Right. And we're both going,
And then you become
we both need to change.
right. If you can turn inward on that and say, look, it doesn't matter how they act. If I can get my crap in order,
Yep.
dude, I just have to tell you something real quick. The Lord, He like backhanded me hardcore the other night. So, Illy, she's 3, so she still gets up in the middle of the night, comes into our room and gets in our bed. And so she wakes me up when she does that. Or she won't always wake me up when she does that, but if she sleeps between me and Kim, she rolls around, and so
Right.
she'll inevitably kick me and wake me up.
Yeah.
And so what I tried to do one night was, take her back to her bed and get her to go back to sleep in her bed. And sometimes she will if she's out. But the last couple of times she's been awake. And so I'll take her to her bed and I'll leave her in her room, and she'll start crying and saying, I want to go to your bed. I want to go to your bed. And I'll say, like, no, you need to sleep in your bed. You need to sleep in your bed. And she'll cry and cry and cry. And I keep telling her, no, no, no. Well, I eventually cave and end up letting her sleep in our bed. But the other night, she got up and and came into our room. She kept waking me up. So I finally took her back to her room, and I was like, you need to sleep in your bed. And I was like freaking out on her.
Yeah.
And so she's crying, and I'm like, go to sleep. You're going to be in trouble. You need to go to sleep right now. And so she's like, okay. So she's crying. She's weeping. And she's, sobbing. And so I go and I lay on the couch because I want to listen to see if she stops crying and goes to sleep. Well, she keeps crying. And I go in there and I'm like, why are you still awake? I'm just leaning into her. And she says, there's a monster in my room. There's a monster in my room. I was like, there's no monsters. Go to sleep. And finally I'm like, okay. So I grab her and I go and put her in the bed with Kim, and I go to sleep on the couch, and I lay down and I'm like, I don't know why she thinks there's monsters in the room. And God goes, you're the monster.
Oh.
You're the one yelling at her in the middle of the night in the dark. Go to sleep. Separating her from you're like, dude, he broke me, bro.
Oh man.
And he showed me like my wickedness, my sin.
Right.
And that's exactly what you're talking about, is that it's not always like you are in complete control of the situation, right? Like you cannot freak out on the kids. And so I've had to tell myself, like, man, I got to be more gentle. I got to be more kind.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And we're
the best representation of Jesus to our kids.
Yeah. I just been praying, man, and like asking God lately, like, help me to have more patience. Like, bear that fruit in me, God. Like, I want to bear that fruit in such a way that it's noticeable.
Yeah.
It's noticeable, And so, man, one time I asked Kim, I was just like, when you think about the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, all that stuff, like if you put my name in that sentence, how much of that stuff can you actually say that I am? Jason is loving. Well, yeah, sometimes. Jason is patient. Jason's not patient. Jason is kind. Jason's not very kind sometimes.
Right.
Jason is gentle. Jason's definitely not gentle.
Yeah.
Jason is patient. Jason is definitely not patient. And so, dude, it just kind of broke me, man. And you're onto something there when you have to just take ownership for who you are.
Right.
And say, man, I've got to go to the Lord, and he has to change me.
And that's exactly what we did. I mean, we took that time to go, where are we? I mean, essentially, without us realizing what we're doing until you defined it and brought this topic up, we were getting kingdom vision for our family. And we really saw that the Lord wants to do something in our family and to take us somewhere else and to have us be a family worth joining. But that starts in our home. And so, I mean, we talked about all sorts of things. I'm just going to read through a couple. That was a big one, the heart issues. The other one is we had a renewed spark in our marriage, but that's because we had time. And so, for us, we were like, man, we only get date nights maybe once a month, but it's because we can't afford them. You got to get a babysitter, and then you pay for the babysitter, and then you go to dinner, and then you get dessert, or you go to a movie. And then we're like, how can we reimagine date nights to where we're spending, less than $20 on childcare, maybe just going and doing something for free for an hour. So reimagining date nights. I mean, so again, like I talked about at the beginning of the show, I've been working out. That's my me time. Like and I told you this, when I work out, it's not I want to get bigger, like I want to, get swole, but it's the mental release for me. Like it is good mentally. There are endorphins that are released. That's good. Larry didn't have something like that. So we talked through how can you recharge daily before you get home. We talked about mental health and care. We talked about dinners and families. I mean, we completely redid our house. We bought plates so that we could actually have a family dinner together, and placemats and candles. And we light candles, and we were going to celebrate Shabbat in our household, which is simply a time. It's like the Sabbath essentially.
Sure,
So that whole thing. So we're making all these big changes. We hung up words over our children that every night before we go to bed, we're speaking these words over our kids.
You're a lot more practical than we are.
Yeah, we are. And so, I mean, but like we're on the same page. We're we just changed. We're going to change the words out every week, but we're going, hey, what issues do we notice in our kids' lives, in their hearts right now? Mm-hmm. Well, Sterling, he's kind of been a little wild lately. Well, let's talk about self-control. Right. Hey, Ellie's been really fearful. Let's talk about bravery. Like all of these words, like Sterling was saying, I can't for the longest. And it's like, man, you're capable. Like, so just speaking these positive words over them, and it's been changing things, man.
But where did all this stuff come from?
What do you mean?
Like, how did you decide that you were going to do all these things? Did you read a book?
So
did you
some
go
of
through a
some
class?
of this stuff is, I mean, again, and this would have fit more in like the paradigm of like the church thing that we're trying to do. But for us, we've been reading a lot of I've been reading a lot of stuff by Hugh Halter, this guy Caesar Kalinowski that's got a podcast, the 123 Life School podcast.
He's going to come
on. We'll try to. And then there just books about what it looks like to actually live life outside of just attending a service, but what does it look like being the church? And so this idea of being a family on mission, before you can start just doing all these good things, it has to start in your home. And so for us, we're like, man, before, like, we're not a family worth joining right now. We're not. And so we want to be a family worth joining. We want our meals to be special. And so we knew that we had to make changes in our lives. And I can just tell you this, like, there are people that have left our community because they felt like, I just can't do that. And that's fine. I'm not going to force anyone to do this because you can't. I can't force anyone to try to live this way. It has to come from an inward dwelling.
Yeah.
It has to come from within. So
right. Well, yeah, you have to. I mean, it's got to be the Lord that's going to do that in you, right? Because you can try and force yourself to be somebody, and it's not going to work, right?
Right.
I was going to say. So what I kind of married into essentially with Kim was, so she owned our house before we got married, and the Lord showed her that her house was going to be a place of refuge for some people, that the extra room in her house was going to be a place where people would live and be, and there would be some aspect of relationship or discipleship or whatever. And so when I married into that, she told me, like, hey, the Lord told me that this house was going to be a place where people would live and come and they could rest and we could do some discipleship and stuff. And so we've had 1, 2, 3, 4. We've had 4 people live in the extra room in our home with us. And of course that took sacrifice.
Right.
Because we had so Illy has been in her room and out of her room and in her room and out of her room and back in,
several times.
But we've had these people stay with us and live with us and exist with us. And we talk about the Lord, and there's late nights where we're up talking about theology, or we're praying together, or we're encouraging each other, or we're talking about life, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We also have a building behind our house that at one point looked kind of like a freaking horse stall or whatever.
Yeah, you guys made that livable.
Right. So there was this concrete slab with cinder blocks and wood and a shingle roof on it. And we actually put the money into it. We took out a loan. Probably shouldn't have done it back then, but we did. We took out a loan and we finished this home. And that also was going to be a place where people could come and live, and they'd live with us, and we'd have some sort of connection and relationship with them. And so that's still part of what we're doing.
Right.
There's the pastor of church on the street lives behind us.
Yeah.
And we have a relationship with him and his daughter. And so he'll come and eat with us, and we'll spend time with him.
Yeah.
And we'll pray. We'll talk about the Lord. We'll talk about ministry. It's just part of that kingdom vision that the Lord said, you're going to do this. And we've said, okay.
Yeah.
And then we've had an opportunity over time to be able to see these things kind of play out and these relationships play out. And again, it's just listening and saying, okay, Lord, what do you want to do? And then being able to agree together. But I mean, honestly, it's like, it's not as easy for everybody because not everybody has a spouse that says, I'll do whatever the Lord says.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing for us. We got to a place where we were sick and tired of not, feeling like we were taking steps forward. And so for us, you talked about God has set forth these things for you guys, like these dreams, and he revealed some things. So for us, it's focusing on our family, and it's becoming a family that's worth joining. It's becoming a family that radiates the love of Christ, and it's becoming a family to where one of our main goals is raising our children, and like loving them and all of that. Like, that sounds crazy. It's like, oh, you pay for this and that, but like, no, like, we're a family, we're a team. Like, there's this atmosphere in it that just radiates Christ because we're all in this together. And so, I mean, we've made some other shifts. Like, the best thing for us has actually been having, we call it our business meeting. Every Sunday we preview, like, hey, when's our next date night? What's the menu look like this week? When are you going to have your time? What are you doing? Okay, what are we doing for Shabbat?
I need to
what
do
meal
some
are we
of what
making?
You guys are doing.
Dude, bro, and it's been crazy. I mean, we've only had it, it's been, I think we're 2.5, 3 weeks in or something like that, but it's changed. We've been talking about it for months, and we finally pulled the trigger on it, and it's just changed the atmosphere
really
of our
done
home.
something.
And so,
Yeah.
I mean, we want to do this, but for us, we feel like God's telling us, you're going to lead the way in living water for this. And so we got to live this stuff, man. And so we're going to live it. And then, it's not just like, oh, we're going to do this and then teach others, but there's a part of it to where we have to live it so that people could come along with us on this journey. So,
yeah, well, I do freelance, so I'm all over the place. I do podcasting. So, I mean, there's days where, it's like, oh, I've got this and I've got that and I've got the next thing. And so I'm always having to schedule things. And for a while, that was a point of contention, right? Like, I'm always gone. I'm always doing this stuff. Kim thinks that, I don't want to be at home or something like that. And, constantly telling her like, that's not the case. I love you. I want to be with you. I want to be here at the house, but I'm so busy doing these things. Well, now that we have this vision to get out of debt and do all these things and like really get some freedom in that area, she says, "Oh, you just take whatever job you need to take, do whatever you need to do." And she knows.
Yep.
So I'm still busy. I'm still taking jobs, but the heart towards it has changed because we know that this is something that the Lord wants us to be doing. And that's going to make all the difference in the world when you are knowing that this is something that God's leading you to do, right?
Right.
And so you get on. And so that's the main thing. I think the main thing I just kind of want to say about this whole kingdom vision for marriage and family is that, number one, it takes seeking the Lord and really asking him what his heart for your family and for your marriage is. And then number two, having the conversation with your spouse, and agreeing on that's what the Lord wants to do.
Right.
And again, not being in a place where you have to force them to agree that this is what the Lord wants. But when the Lord speaks to both of you and confirms it, and you can come together over that, it's just going to blow it. It really, you're going to have peace come into your household.
And chances are, I mean, and this could start with a conversation, It sounds so bad, but very rarely do husbands and wives even talk about, hey, how are you doing? Like you could easily kick it off that way. Like take your wife or your husband on a coffee date or, whatever, go get a drink at a bar, like go get a drink. I don't know, but go. And then with the intention of just saying, hey, how are you doing? Like, are you happy right now? Like, are you happy? And, with that, like, you give them permission to be honest. It may hurt a little bit because you're going to see like, no, I'm not happy. I'm actually miserable in our marriage. And like, and then you can say, you can have a conversation like, I want to change things. Let's do this. Let's change. Like, let's get on the same page. Let's get away for an evening, for a weekend. Let's talk about this stuff. And man, if there's anyone out there that is wanting to learn how to implement some of the things that I've been talking about, man, shoot us an email at the Salty Dogs. What's our email?
saltydogspodcast@gmail.com.
Shoot us an email or message us on Facebook. I would love to engage with you and try to help you figure out, but obviously this is the practical side. The best person to go to is Jesus. Jesus, what do you want us to do? But if this is something that he says, hey, begin to live in this reorienting lifestyle where you're becoming a family worth joining. Like I'd love to talk to anyone more about that has questions. But yeah, how do you know if your family needs kingdom vision? Does your household feel like it's hopeless? Does it feel like you're living on the grind? Does it feel like your family's on edge, waiting for you to explode? Like, do you feel like you aren't connected to your spouse? If the answer is yes to any of those, you probably need kingdom vision.
Well, I think if your relationships, your time, and just your focus, if it's chaotic, so in Genesis chapter 1, it talks about the Spirit of God hovering over the face of the deep, and it was without form and it was void. And so those words actually mean two different things, without form and void. And so without form actually means chaotic and without purpose, and void means empty. Are you listening to me?
Yeah, I'm just getting some text messages. The weather's supposed to get really bad.
Oh, is it?
Solara's kind of freaking out.
Okay. Well, we should probably get home.
Probably.
So in the beginning, Spirit of God is hovering over the face of the deep.
Mm-hmm.
It was and the earth was without form and it was void.
Yes.
Two different descriptors. Without form means chaotic without purpose, and void means empty. And so when he speaks light and he begins to create, he gives the earth form and he gives it purpose, and then he fills it with humans, right? And so there's huge correlation with, Jesus coming and filling us with his Spirit, and giving us purpose as the church and all that stuff. But I think if you look at your life and you feel like it's chaotic and there's no purpose, which is how I felt, like, there's all this stuff going on. Nothing's in order. Things are crazy. I don't even know how to function. I don't know how to exist right now. I feel like I'm wasting my time. What's the point of all this? You're asking those questions. You're chaotic.
Lacking purpose.
It's without purpose, and it's probably empty.
Yeah.
And so I think the Lord wants to speak into that life and light and purpose. And he wants to look at what you're seeing as maybe without purpose and saying, no, there's purpose for it.
Yeah.
And he wants to take maybe what's empty and he wants to fill it.
Yeah.
Right. And so he wants to take what's chaotic and he wants to bring order.
Right.
And that's all it is just getting to a place.
Kingdom order.
And saying, God, what is that kingdom purpose?
Man, I want to, and I hope no one takes this as negatively, but I just want to speak to any pastors right now and anyone that's in ministry, like any form of ministry. it's easy to assume that is exactly like you're fulfilling your kingdom purpose and, like this kingdom vision that God has for you by being in this ministry. That may be part of it. But if your home is out of order, and hear me now, pastors, if your home is out of order and it is chaotic and you are creating a disruption in your home and you are losing it on your kids and your wife, that is not okay. It's not okay, and that is not God's plan for your life. And I can guarantee you he would rather you get your heart right and your home right than worry about how many people you're leading to Jesus, on the weekend. Like, I feel like somebody needs to hear that. But just know, like, your home comes first. Your heart comes first. Your family.
Don't sacrifice your family and your marriage on the altar of ministry.
Right, because I think that at times I've done that.
Yeah.
And it's terrible. It's messy.
It's easy to do. Yeah, man, I think that's a good word to end on. I'd love to keep going. I think there's a lot more to say about this, but yeah, we've got some crazy storm coming.
Yeah,
in
we got like
right now,
some 80-mile-an-hour winds coming our way.
We need to get rolling. So, man, I hope people are encouraged. And
right.
Yeah. So again, as always, if you guys have any questions and need to reach out to us, hit us up on Facebook or email us at saltydogspodcast@gmail.com. Go to saltydogspodcast.com. And you can reach out to us. There's a contact page. So thanks to all our patrons. We still have people who are giving on a monthly basis. Thank you so much. We'll have some bonus content coming soon. And anyways, yeah, I got nothing else, man.
Man, this is a good conversation.
Sorry to have to just shut it down, but we got to go. Weather's about to get nuts.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know if this was beneficial for you guys.
Yep, hit us up. We appreciate you.
All right,
bye-bye.
Peace.